Mike, thanks for taking your time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for talking about everything dinosaur and everything dinosaur evolution. Who are you? Where are you based? Maybe you can introduce yourself and what everything dinosaur actually is.
Thank you, Karim. It's a pleasure to be here. Can I just first of all say how impressed I am with such an amazing, talented group of people that I'm sharing this Zoom meeting with? I've been in the dinosaur industry for 3 decades nearly, and every time I get involved with these types of events, I'm always blown away by how passionate people are, how dedicated they are, and how amazingly talented this community is. It's just phenomenal. So my congratulations to everybody who submitted artwork. You're all stars in my book. And I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. And I congratulate you, Karim, for giving this opportunity to people to express their art and to share their stories in this wider community. As for me, my name's Mike. I am a member of Everything Dinosaur, fairly major retailer now of dinosaur and prehistoric animal models. We're based in Cheshire, just south of Manchester, and it was myself and Sue, my partner, who sort of run the company, and we are involved with dinosaur models from a retail point of view, but also we're kind of like the go-to guys. Everything dinosaur, every manufacturer knows us, every factory owner knows us, everybody who's sort of involved in the design process of prehistoric animals, they kind of come to us and they pick our brains and they ask our advice, and we try our best to help. And in return, it's also talking to our customers and talking to people who just are passionate about dinosaurs. And we always try our best to support paleo art and the creative people who are so prevalent in this wonderful industry.
So what made you create Everything Dinosaur? What was the beginning of it?
Well, I've always been fascinated by dinosaurs and prehistoric animals. Yes, I like going fossil hunting. I like reading about dinosaurs. I've always been fascinated. I was fortunate enough to meet the likes of Tim Haynes when he'd just done Walking with Dinosaurs in the late 1990s. And that really fired my inspiration to maybe when the internet became a bit more developed, that we could maybe find a way to share our passion for what I was doing, which was collecting prehistoric animal models, and build a business around that passion. And that's kind of how Everything Dinosaur sort of started.
And okay, since then you're bringing dinosaurs to the small and also the bigger, the grown-ups, as I guess as toys and also as collectibles.
Yeah. If you think about it, dinosaurs have the best PR in the world. Everybody loves dinosaurs. And whether you're 8 years of age and you're involved in dinosaurs as play items, or whether you're a collector and you're passionate about paleontology and you have your own extremely extensive collection of prehistoric animals, then that's kind of like the people we're talking to all the time. So you can be 8 years of age, you can be 80 years of age, but the common link is that you're into dinosaurs, and that's what we're about. My background is teaching, and I used to go into schools. I used to write the science curriculum, and I was forever building in dinosaurs into that and various bits and pieces. And that for me was a great way to empower people into understanding more about science, about nature, about evolution. Dinosaurs is like a Trojan horse. You get him into dinosaurs, then you get him involved in all kinds of other aspects of science and teaching and history and what have you. And that's a great gateway leading on to bigger things, learning about science, learning about the natural world in general.
So it's also for you something to serve the community, like to make it accessible for people.
Yeah, very much so. Obviously, we've got a global, worldwide customer base, but every day we get sent pictures, artwork, illustrations. We get asked questions from young people, from paleontologists, from people with collections, all kinds of advice, all kinds of questions will get asked, and we do our best to answer them. We've always tried to develop a community and to be understanding that people who are into dinosaurs are very much passionate, and we try to ensure that they're engaged and they're involved and they feel appreciated for having their knowledge and having their collections. I'm forever being corrected by 8-year-olds because I'm always getting things wrong.
So a couple years ago, you started Everything Dinosaur Evolution, which sounds like you want to put something on top of the existing Everything Dinosaur company. What is this about? Like, is it something you thought there's missing in the industry?
Well, we were forever spending our time advising other people on how to make models and what they should be doing with things like international trademarking, product testing, this regulation, that regulation, that we actually built up quite a lot of knowledge. I've always wanted to be able to give something back to the industry and to try to design models which are going to be the best representation you can possibly have of an animal that's extinct. To forget about the movie monsters and forget about sort of the film franchises and try to depict animals as they perhaps would have been in real life. Try to create as scientifically accurate representations as we could. And because of our connections, with the industry, but also with paleo artists, with digital sculptors, with paleontologists, we could put together a team of people that could perhaps design the next generation of dinosaurs and prehistoric animal figures. And that's kind of how Everything Dinosaur Evolution sort of came about.
There is, in the last couple months and years, a bunch of people with the accessible technology, 3D printing, sculpturing, like using Blender and whatever. What makes your model stand out more?
Well, to give you a little insight, at the moment
Yes.
we're working on a Triceratops. The idea behind evolution is to actually have a reason for collecting prehistoric animal models, so that we look at the geology and we look at the paleo environment and we try to put together a group of animals that represent the biota, the ecosystem. So the first one we chose was Hell Creek, and we wanted to do an iconic series first. So it's North America, it's Montana, it's Upper Cretaceous, and there's 4 figures. And when you are working with this type of technology, I've got Bob, the paleo artist, who's now learning ZBrush, which is the sculpting software. And he's working with Glenn Southern, who is our principal digital sculptor. Glenn has got 30 years experience of this work. He is basically Mr. ZBrush. They built the software around him. And between them, they're kind of working on new ways of depicting prehistoric animals. So we're inventing new brushes and new techniques and new methods within the software to try and get the real detail that we want to try and depict in our figures. The latest iteration of Triceratops, I've just seen a video from Glenn, which he's passed on to Bob Nichols. The latest iteration is 100 million polygons in size. That's a massive, massive file. So we're talking intense data, really great detail down to the scale level. It's a very sophisticated design and development process. And that's what's kind of elevating what we're doing and moving us into a different area of the industry.
You have not only Bob Nichols, but you also have Dean Lomax on board. So you have the really hardcore scientific background, but you also have a very artistic background in it. How does it help you developing these models with these 2 people?
Well, one of the things that has happened is that we've known Bob and Dean for a very long time. I've known Dean Lomax for must be 15 years now. And we get asked, why do we put the team together and how does this team work? Well, Dean is a very capable, very knowledgeable person, but he's also got this fantastic ability to communicate ideas. Dean is talking about really high level, very sophisticated elements of fossil study, of paleontology, of anatomy, but he's got the ability to communicate what he wants to get across to someone like me with a limited understanding. So Dean's come into the team because he's got this in-depth knowledge, but he's also a great team player, and he's got the ability to get across really complex ideas that the rest of us can understand and we can build into the model. So that's how Dean sort of came into it. Great science communicator. If you ever read any of his books, you can see he's passionate about what he does. And he's a really brilliant person at being able to take time out to explain complex ideas that people can understand. So that's why Dean's involved. Bob is an incredibly talented artist. Most of your audience, I guess, would know the work of Bob Nichols. I came across Bob many years ago, and he was painting the head of a Liopleurodon, a marine reptile. And I watched him work, and he was absolutely meticulous. He was so passionate about what he was doing. So he came on board because I wanted someone who would really get the detail and really buy into the idea of trying to create some of the most sophisticated color schemes on a model that you could possibly imagine. And again, with Glenn Southern, this brilliant sculptor, we've got kind of like the dream team for dinosaur model making. Really good people who are top of their game, and they're all capable of working together and sharing really complex ideas that someone like me, well, I can understand.
How many iterations does the model, which you also have on your right side, how many iterations does it take to create it?
The T-Rex, which is EDE001, that's its code name, that's its batch number. It was 3 years in development. No other company would go down that level of detail. It's about being absolutely passionate about getting it right. We have a saying, 3 weeks just on the toenails. There was a period during the T-Rex development where we spent 3 weeks just on the claws of the hind feet, getting the shape right, getting it to look and feel correct. And that's the level of detail we went into. Most dinosaur model making projects last a few weeks, few months. Going on for 3 years is a really, that's never been done before, but it's about trying to get it right and trying to depict the animal as a living, breathing creature. That if you could travel back in time to 66 million years ago, Upper Cretaceous Montana, and you saw a T-Rex, you'd think, well, actually, the Everything Dinosaur Evolution model was kind of close. And that's what we're trying to get to.
So this one model took 3 years. It won't be the only model you're working on. Like you also teased, and also in the chat, there was a teaser about the Triceratops. Are you working on multiple models at the same time, or is it like one after another? So because the motto on your webpage is also like one model after the other, one dinosaur model at a time.
The idea behind the Everything Dinosaur Evolution was to look at the geology as well. And this is a model collecting community. This is a paleo-art community. So why don't we try and build a community of prehistoric animals that were coeval with each other, that coexisted with each other, that interacted with each other, so that there's a reason to collect them. It's part of a series, if you like. So with Hell Creek, there will be 4 figures. The next figure is Triceratops horridus. He is a radical Triceratops. I can honestly say I've never seen a Triceratops figure quite like this chap. We've learned so much more about Triceratops anatomy than we ever thought we would. And we've identified some unusual traits in this ceratopsian that no one's really thought of before. And to give you an idea, if you ever go to a museum and you see Triceratops, you always see the skull and you look at the horns, and the horns are highlighted, and you look at the thrill and its magnificence, so on and so forth. For us, one of the key things is to actually look behind that head shield and look at the neck. And one of the things we've discovered is that the neck of Triceratops, as it's depicted in most other representations, it's not an accurate depiction of the neck. When you look at the cervical vertebra, it tells a whole new story. And our Triceratops is a big, big beast. And as part of the development project, we're working with Triceratops and we're showing it next to the T-Rex. And you can see why T-Rex would have maybe avoided a large adult Triceratops horridus if it could, because the Triceratops figure, it's a beast. It's a really big, chunky monkey, and it's depicting Triceratops very accurately. And we're seeing it as a different type of animal than what people might perceive. And the horn shape, there's been a lot of work on the horn shape, and our horns are, I think, the most sophisticated representation of the horns that's ever taken place. I won't quite tell you how they're going to look, but they look different to what you might have imagined. If you think, Triceratops, I think you might be in for a little surprise.
Okay. When is it ready?
It's ready when it's ready. I
Ready when
left
it's ready.
Bob and Dean discussing a few bits and pieces. We spend an awful lot of time going backwards and forwards and backwards with the tweaks because it's about getting this right. Even the position of the manus, the hands, we've learned something new about Triceratops limb posture from looking at essentially footprints, and we're trying to build that into the model now. So it's a very sophisticated, very complicated process, and there is literally no stone or no bone left unturned.
What, during these 3 years and more of reconstructing back and forth, what was the most frustrating moment?
One of the difficulties has been is to try to get a figure that we can design that we can then manufacture. All figures or most figures are made through a process called plastic injection molding. And that technology is 20th century technology, but the design processes that we now use are very much state of the art. And we can go down to literally a scale on the skin regarding the integument. But when it comes to manufacturing, there are always compromises to be had when it comes to physically producing a model. One of the things that I told you when we were doing the test for this is that every single T-Rex figure is different because we couldn't work out how to do quality control because of the complexities of the cast and because of the complexities of the painting process. So the chief engineer was given the job of sort of using his eye to gauge whether we had an accurate T-Rex at every time it came down the production line. And those he didn't think met the brief, didn't make it into the final manufacturing process. It was down to a human being almost acting like a craftsman to make sure that the type of figures that were being produced met our very broad brief.
And then the opposite was the most rewarding moment of creating this figure, maybe even before releasing it.
Well, the really nice thing is that when we had the first production models, we sent them over to Dean, to Bob, and to Glenn, and got them to do a little unboxing to see what they'd actually worked on and what had come out. And it was nice to see their sort of the amazing wow moment when they actually held the figure themselves and saw it as a tangible, realistic model. And for me personally, there's been a huge amount of buzz about everything Dinosaur Evolution, and the feedback we've had from customers has been phenomenal. Yeah, we are breaking new ground. This is a brand new form of product development and design. This is brand new technology. This is pushing things like the environmental considerations way, way, way beyond where they've gone. This is about producing a digital product passport so people can actually interact with us and communicate with us direct and post up pictures which travel around with the model thanks to the smart QR code. We've really pushed out the boat, and it's great to see really positive feedback and comments from collectors, from paleo artists, and for dinosaur fans.
You mentioned very briefly that you're thinking about the environmental impact. Maybe you can tell a little bit how you consider it environmental impact, because in the end you have a dinosaur model. A dinosaur is like usually made out of plastics. When you look at, for example, one of the unboxing from the last models on your social media profiles, there was a lot of plastic around it. So it's usually lots of plastic. What are you doing to counteract against like environmental changes, etc.?
So we have global warming. We believe in something called extended producer responsibility. We're a manufacturer now, and as such, we as manufacturers should be considering every aspect of the production process. So from our point of view, we wanted to get rid of plastic packaging. Most dinosaur models are packed in EPE foam. If I have a piece, this is your EPE foam. It's what usually gets packed into dinosaur models. It's lightweight. It's easily moldable. It's great for packing figures and protecting them, but it's got an awful recycling profile. You can technically recycle it, but most of that EPE foam from a dinosaur model goes into landfill. So we wanted to try and move away from that. So we actually engineered with the factory team a paper pulped tray, which is fully biodegradable, compostable, which packs the model and keeps the model secure. And that means that it's a completely biodegradable and plastic-free figure. And the model is actually packed in a green cloth rather than plastic to protect it, because again, the green cloth can be completely recycled because it's a textile. So we've managed to eliminate all single-use plastic from the product production process. And in the way things are going with legislation and regulations, we've now got what is called plastic and plastic waste regulations in the European Union, that all manufacturers have to start considering how much packaging they're using, how much plastic they're using, and their environmental responsibilities. So we're kind of ahead of the game in that. And we've now got other manufacturers asking us for advice on how to reduce their plastic, because that's the direction of travel. And I think it's good for the industry because it's good for the planet.
This really much makes sense. And also maybe is something many people are not aware of when they buy a model, like what's behind it, like all the processes, everything you need to consider.
We're not very good at the marketing bit. We're not very good at telling the story. When we actually went to the factory and worked with the factory team, and we kind of like handpicked the development team in the factory for us, they had no idea what we were trying to do, and we had to educate them on how to use recyclable materials and how to engineer a paper waste product that could be utilized to make a tray and therefore make it completely biodegradable and recyclable. No one had done that before. We were certainly breaking new ground.
When coming back to the dinosaur models, how risky do you want to get with the selection of the dinosaurs? There are some with a pretty decent amount of research. You have lots of things you can like base your coloration on, your muscle scheme, everything around it. And then you have some where basically everything, not everything, but majority changes every 2 to 3 years. Are you willing to tackle such species as well with the risk you have to redo them again, or how will you handle it?
We're only one fossil bone away from a complete revamp. We're looking at the Triceratops skull, and we're looking at the amount of keratin associated with T. horridus. There is some work being done on integument as we speak. Dean's very much all over this. But again, there is some areas that we will be depicting which are going to be based on the best evidence we've got. But we are one scientific paper, one fossil find away from a complete revamp. That's what the industry is. We have to work with the best evidence we have. In terms of where we're going, yes, Hell Creek has got 4 dinosaurs. The next figure of Triceratops is an Edmontosaurus. There's been some preliminary sketches done on that. And then we're doing Anzu, which is another theropod, but it gives us the opportunity to maybe make a pair of Anzu with a male and a female. So you've got sexual dimorphism. We may be looking at a nesting scene. And I've proposed that for our diorama, we might do a group of eggs, but one egg would be a different color to the other eggs in the Anzu nest. So it's kind of hinting at brood parasitism, if I can say that, where another dinosaur has laid an egg in the nest of the Anzu and then abandoned it. We see that in the natural world. We see that in birds. So why not depict that in theropods? So that's when I put my ideas to the team. And Dean, who is the gatekeeper of the scientific evidence, he's the guy who's the top person in this area. We are guided by his advice and his views on that because he's the polymath with all the knowledge of the vertebrate paleontology. And he's the guy who says, yes, that's a good idea, we can do that. Or no, that's maybe pushing the evidence too far and we're getting into the age of sort of speculation. As for new figures, we want this to be a community effort. So we're actually not sure where we go next after Hell Creek. We're having a vote. There's 5 geological formations that people can vote on, a short list of areas of the world where dinosaur fossils have been found. And that's Wessex Formation, Lower Cretaceous. That's the Kem beds, which is sort of Cretaceous North Africa with the big theropods in there. Then you've got Hatzeg Basin, which is this unique archipelago, Upper Cretaceous, dominated by potentially apex predators and pterosaurs like Hatzegopteryx. Then you've got Cedar Mountain, which is, again, Lower Cretaceous, but Gastonia, Utahraptor, amazing biota there. And the final one is Morrison. And when we talk to paleontologists, they want us to use Morrison because that's where most of the fossils for dinosaurs, that's where the most amount of material is for us to work on. So Morrison's a real favorite with the paleontologists, whereas the other formations, animals represented there by less fossil material. But if we do Morrison, we might not do Allosaurus fragilis, we might not do Diplodocus, we might look at some of the more unusual animals known from that part of the world and that upper Jurassic deposits, because again, we'll be guided by the community. And if people ask us to do Morrison, we might do some other Morrison dinosaurs because they're underrepresented.
Mm-hmm. I've got two questions popping up. So you selected now Dean Lomax and Bob Nichols as paleontologist and paleoartist. Do you think about for different species you need different people, or also is there a risk to stick to like very specific people and maybe you need to get advice from somewhere else?
There's an awful lot of people who have been proffering advice to us on various prehistoric animals. Again, if you look at someone like Glenn Southern, he's been designing dinosaurs for all kinds of other projects for a long time, so he can use his contacts to develop some ideas and some input. Dean's extraordinarily well connected and can pick the brains of all kinds of other researchers to get their input and their advice. And the same with Bob. Bob's very well known and he's got a very broad range of contacts, so we can dip in and out of various areas of expertise. But one of the key things for me is that if you're going to try to build a team of people together who can work on this project, they have to be a good team player. They have to work together as a team. And perhaps most importantly, they have to get myself and Sue, because we're kind of like the people who are trying to get these things done, but we are constrained by issues related to the factory process and the painting schemes. So we have to try and find that compromise where we take all this pool of talent and try to focus that on a single dinosaur model, but we are constrained by the level of manufacturing technology that we can introduce at this stage.
So right now you have a very limited amount of time and capacity you can spend off developing the models, producing them, selling them. Is it meant to stay that way, or can you imagine like you have different teams working on different formations and time periods? For example, there was in the chat, someone could check out formations in Canada or somewhere else, maybe time
Provincial Park. Yeah, it was one of the ones that we looked at, and we did seriously look at Dinosaur Provincial Park. And Sue and I have been lucky enough to go to Alberta and to actually visit Dinosaur Provincial Park, and we have been involved in various dinosaur excavations. In fact, Sue famously tripped over an Edmontosaurus caudal vertebra. So that was her sort of like her discovery of her first dinosaur fossil. She basically fell over it. And that took place in Dinosaur Provincial Park. And there's so many amazing geological formations. One of the key things we want to do is to help people to understand about the geology and the time zones, because you have this classic typical issue where someone puts a T-Rex model next to a Stegosaurus model. And yet T-Rex is much closer temporarily to human beings than it was a Stegosaurus. So we're keen to try and educate and help inform people who perhaps aren't as aware of how big, deep geological time is. So yeah, there's lots of places that we want to go and visit, and we're not necessarily looking at Mesozoic. Dean loves marine reptiles, so there may be some opportunities to look at some unusual marine reptiles from the Paleozoic and to see how those animals evolved and became their types of creatures in their time zones. So we're not limiting ourselves to Mesozoic, but from a commercial point of view, the first model has to be a T-Rex because it outsells every other dinosaur model 6-1.
I get that. You brought it with you, but also people can check it out on the website. Is every model then from the painting scheme, etc., unique because you say they never look the same?
When you make a dinosaur model, one of the areas that gets discussed quite late on in the production process is the color scheme. For us, we kind of turned it on its head a bit. We're working with Bob. We had some initial drawings, and Bob was already beginning to map out the type of color scheme he wanted. When it comes to trying to depict a living animal, its coloration, how it would react with its environment, they're all very important hints and clues as to what you might be able to create. And our color scheme was extraordinarily sophisticated. Normally, when you're doing a painting team, you've got maybe 3 people working as painting teams on a model. I think there were 12 painting stations as our T-Rex went through. So there was so much sort of hand human involvement in every single model. The good thing is he stands up without his base, so he could sit on the production line quite good as gold and go from one painting station to the other. But there's an awful lot of human input into this manufacturing process. So every single model is subtly and slightly different because of the number of people who've been working on it.
How do you see the market of paleo models? Like now you have the need to create new models which are as scientifically accurate as possible. With all the people creating models by themselves, printing by themselves, how is the market evolving?
Well, you're right. We've seen a huge revolution with the advent of 3D printing. And it's great. You can actually design your own models. You can print your own models. There's a lot of people who are actually involved with that. And some of the models I've seen are absolutely brilliant. The difficulty you have is trying to then scale that up into a manufacturing process, because it's all very well to make small models for yourself and have almost like an Etsy kind of model where you're selling to a few people. But then you have to go into the realms of product testing, copyright, intellectual property, trademarking. It's a much more sophisticated process, much more technical and much more regulated when you start actually getting into production levels. If you look at, there's a smart QR code on the box, and on Bob's card envelope, there's the QR code. You can scan that, and then you see the various technical bits and pieces associated with the production process. There's a lot of work in manufacturing. It's very technical, very complex, and it's certainly on a completely different level to those people who might be just making 3D models on their own.
So you put something on top, which is also rewarding for the people collecting them.
Yeah, well, the really nice thing is this is a digital product passport, and one day all retail goods will have a digital product passport. The idea is you walk into a shopping mall or a supermarket, you scan the product code with your phone, and up comes all the information about where it was made, the batch number, the team behind it, who to contact if there's an issue with it, the ingredients, how to dispose of the packaging, all that sort of stuff. It's all there at your fingertips. And that's the technology that's now sort of beginning to sort of come into retail. When we first started on the project for our T-Rex, there was us, Apple, and one other major sort of retailer involved in this technology. We were kind of like the first. And we got contacted by a major UK retailer called Tesco's, and they wanted to ask us how we were getting on using digital product passports. And they said, look, we have 1 million products. How are you getting on? Tell us how you're getting on with your digital product passport. We had to say, well, we've got one digital product passport and one model. So we're not quite at your level yet, but if you need any advice, we're happy to share what we've learned. We really are at the cutting edge of technology, but this is the way all retail will go, where you, the consumer, have absolute control over what you see about the product by just scanning that QR code.
I also wanted to ask you, how much do you interact with the community? Like, do you get feedback, actively reach out to paleo artists, paleontologists?
Like I said, we're rubbish at marketing. We are now probably one of the biggest global sellers, but we've taken 20 years to become an overnight success. And we've always, from the very beginning, always tried to build this community. We know lots of our customers by name, and many people I've seen on this Zoom webinar, I know them because I see them and they're customers and they know me. And this is something about Everything Dinosaur. We're not a company, we're Mike and Sue. And everybody knows Mike and Sue, and they kind of get to know us and get to understand how we work and our passion behind what we do. And they're the people who sell the dinosaur models. It's not Everything Dinosaur. And from the very beginning, we've always tried to support people with their own projects. We research and write our own dinosaur fact sheets, often to the bemusement of Dr. Dean Lomax when I make my mistakes. But we have a drawing on every single fact sheet, and we work with young artists, we work with people who help us by providing the drawings, and we pay them. And we may be the first people in the world who've ever recognized their interest in dinosaurs and rewarded them for their art. And that's something that we're keen to do. We like to give something back.
Also sounds really exciting that you get in touch with newcoming artists, etc., to just also give them a space and something to show off a bit their skills.
Well, many years ago, we wrote a blog article about a young Japanese designer who'd made some soft furniture, some household goods based on dinosaur skeletons. And we reached out to her and said, this is fantastic. Can we do a blog article about you? And that was in 2009. She's now quite a famous designer, travels the world. She's very creative. And she kept the email that we sent her because we were the first people on the planet outside of her immediate friends and family who recognized her and recognized her work. And in 2022, I had to contact her about another matter. And 13 years after I first wrote to her, she still had the email because we were the first people ever to say, hey, we like what you're doing. We think it's great. Can we put a blog article together just about you? And she's kept that email. And that was really touching for me to realize that we were having that profound effect on someone in the start of their career.
This is really amazing. Also, when there's someone reaching out, even if it's like this email or even if it's a message, it helps a lot. People remember it, I would say.
Sue and I have always tried to be kind. We live in a very tough world. It's getting harder and harder. But the wonderful thing about dinosaurs and prehistoric animals is there's a really vibrant community. And you've demonstrated that today with some amazing people demonstrating their artwork from all over the world. So many talented people, so many creative people, and we're great believers in giving people the opportunity to share their passion for paleontology and paleo art.
You mentioned something about the collecting process, which also helps people and helps the community and helps especially neurodivergent people. So maybe you can tell a little bit about this, like why is this important to you, how you came across this, because you started Everything Dinosaur not with the intention, but I guess it's also an important part of it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And thank you for raising it, Karim. It took a long time to develop the T-Rex model, for example, because we actually reached out to customers and we asked people for their advice. And we recognize there's an awful lot of people who collect dinosaur models who are neurodiverse. We deal with people with ADHD, with autism, with mental health issues, and dinosaurs is great therapy. So one of the things we wanted to do was to actually reach out to that community. So when it came to like creating artwork to go with the model, we could have developed posters. But when we talked to people who are on the autistic spectrum, they came back and said, don't do posters because it's really stressful when you get your model in a box and the poster's folded up. And then you open up the poster and it's always got these folds on it. Can you do something which is not going to look like it's got folds on it? So we came up with the idea of getting Bob to create postcard-sized images, which could be put in the box. So when you open the packaging, there are no folds. There are just beautiful visuals created by Bob. And that came about by getting feedback from people who collect dinosaur models, but who get stressed when they're trying to get a poster out of a box and it's always creased and always folded. And it's learning from our community that sort of drove that part of the development process. Even the plastic that the figure is cast from It's a different type of plastic to what other dinosaur models are made from. It has a better environmental profile, which we want to support, but it's got a tactile, a warm sort of feel. And coming from our feedback from talking to collectors, many of them said they didn't like the feel of the models that they were buying. They were quite scratchy, quite hard. So they wanted us to find some way of making a more tactile figure, something that actually had a real heft to it, like it was a living animal, but something that was actually more comfortable to hold, because we appreciate many people who are neurodiverse, those on the autistic spectrum, for example, they can have sensitivity issues and things just don't feel and touch right to, just don't feel right to the touch to them. So we try to build that sort of idea into the production process.
And now I would like you to put this in your advertisement somewhere. It is such an important point, which, of course, there will be a lot of people who will not recognize it. Like they will unbox it and they will have like the feeling about this good feel about the card, but they treat it more like a normal feature, like other people do. And I think it's also really important to highlight that. All about the thought process behind it.
The thing about everything Dinosaur Evolution, I said it's taken 3 years to get one model. The depth and the detail we've gone into is astonishing. We work with lots of other manufacturers. You and I are the go-to guys for model making for so many reasons, and we're often involved in all kinds of projects, but no one has ever done anything like this. We've spent 3 decades selling dinosaurs. We wanted to really reach out to the community and to make something that was the best thing we could make, but it's made the right way with the right ideas behind it. And I guess that's what evolution is. And at the end of the day, you're not just buying a dinosaur model, you're buying into a story. And that story is about the community and about the paleontologists and paleoartists around the world who make dinosaurs such a fascinating area for us to be involved with today.
So this also answers my very first question. What makes your model different from the other ones? Everything behind it, like the whole process, all the thoughts that go into it from the beginning to the end.
No one has ever designed a dinosaur model like this. And it is a incredibly complex and challenging process. If you look at the Triceratops, we're on issue 55 or something now, and it's radically different to what you might think Triceratops is. We've learned things about the animal that we didn't necessarily know until we embarked on this process. And at the very moment I'm talking to Bob about his ideas for the integument and the color scheme, I've been submitting information to Bob about what I know is coming out from other manufacturers and what ideas might be circulating around about color schemes and production processes, and helping him. But I've given him completely carte blanche. He'll be the guy who comes up with a color scheme. It'll be extremely complicated, very sophisticated, and based on his very best understanding of Dean's research and Glenn's design. And then I'll be going back to the factory team and saying, well, this is what we want. Let's try and get this thing built.
Yeah, it really makes sense now why you went into everything Dinosaur Evolution. Is it ever boring or is it always exciting?
Well, I'm a model collector too, so I have the best job in the world. And we are so lucky. We have amazing customers. We have amazing suppliers. And every day is new. Every day is a challenge. But we just have fun. We have our own offices and warehouses now. They're really popular at the moment because our warehouse is nicknamed Ice Station Zebra, because it's freezing cold. No matter how hard we try to heat it, we just can't keep the place warm. So it's a lovely, cool environment to work in at the moment. And we just play with dinosaurs all day. And that's really great. And as a model collector too, I understand and I get the passion behind why people collect dinosaurs and why people are fascinated with prehistoric animals.
The models itself, you ship them worldwide.
Yes, we've built up a global customer base. So we've sent dinosaur models all over the world. It's getting more difficult because of all the new regulations, tariffs and trade barriers and everything else. And we actually work with UK government, and we kind of get people from the civil service and from big trade bodies talking to us, because we're able to kind of find ways to get products to customers, working with the couriers. We've got 30 years experience in this area, so we get a lot of people from industry, from government, asking myself and Sue how to organize things. And Sue is the world's best packer of dinosaur models. We don't bother with fulfillment. We don't get other people to pack our products. It's in our warehouse, and we will pick and we will pack that figure. It's just the two of us doing it. And Sue is Miss Tessellate 2026. She can pack dinosaur models just so brilliantly. That's one of her superpowers.
I really should give that a test and see how it is. Already, thank you for your time, because you are very busy. You already told it that it's really tricky to even take a day off.
We don't take days off. I went to Berlin. I had 36 hours in Berlin so I could go to the Natural History Museum. That had to be done on a weekend because we are just so busy. China doesn't stop at weekends. Many of our customers are in completely different time zones, so we're having to deal with emails and correspondence all the time. It's a 24-hour job, 7 days a week. But Sue and I are really lucky. We work well together. We get along together. We've known each other for a very long time, and we just have fun. So it's not really work for us. We just have a great time working in this wonderful industry.
This is really perfect. So many people dream about this kind of job. How do you select the brands you purchase or reselling dinosaur models from?
We get a lot of people coming to me and coming to Sue direct, asking, can we sell their products? We're very open and we're very honest, and we say, yeah, happy to help, happy to oblige. But what you have to bear in mind is that when you become what is called an economic operator, they may have a dinosaur model that they want to sell. We then become part of a distribution chain, the importer of record. And as such, we have legal obligations to ensure that the products are tested, that they're certified, that there is a proper technical data file. And very often, many of the manufacturers we approach, perhaps at that time, they aren't quite really aware of what need to do, what packaging regulations are there, what product testing is there. So we often have to turn down the opportunity to work with them because they just don't have quite the product testing, the regulation, the technical data files in place to allow us to become an economic operator. At the end of the day, every time we ship into the UK, we go through a major UK port, and we have HMRC, which is the tax, we have trading standards, we have people inspecting products, and we have to make sure that all the product safety, all the technical data is there. Otherwise, I would be having a very difficult interview with the port authorities about shipping goods. And for example, we are registered in Europe on the European Product Safety Gateway. It's now mandatory. If you sell in Europe, you have to be registered. And it's all about making sure that if ever was a problem with a product, an issue with a consumer having cut themselves on the packaging, or maybe a child swallowed a small part of a dinosaur model, there is then an immediate contact for the European authorities to get in touch with that person responsible for that product so they can act and get it sorted and get it removed from the market if it needs to be as quickly as possible. So that's the problem for us with many people trying to sell us dinosaur models and work with us. It's the technical, it's the regulations that often thwart the creative ability of the designer.
This makes sense. So as soon as this is provided, everything's okay, they can sell via Everything Dinosaur, I guess.
Well, we go a little further. We've even actually undertaken product testing on behalf of manufacturers ourselves, so that we can be sure that if we bring a product in, we've done the product testing, so that is a perfectly viable product. Even if it's not CE marked, every product should have some form of testing under general safety product regulations. That's been mandatory for a few years now. So even our dinosaur model, which is a 15 plus collectible, it has got a proper testing footprint, as it were. It's got that breadcrumb trail that indicates the product testing's been carried out. And all figures should have something similar, even if they're not CE marked.
There's one, I would say, question or recommendation asking for a pre-order section in the Everything Dinosaur website, which I thought about it might be tricky because the model is just ready when it's ready. So there is no fixed release date, right?
Pre-order is something that we're very aware of. It doesn't matter about Everything Dinosaur Evolution products being on pre-order. We can do that, and we did do it for the T-Rex because we have full control over the manufacturing process. The problem with pre-order for everything else is very simple. Under new anti-fraud regulations and money laundering regulations, if you have a pre-order process, you should technically only have that pre-order credit card payment valid for 90 days. If you work with MasterCard and Visa and you have proper credit card channels, if you have a pre-order process and for some reason the product hasn't arrived yet within that 3-month period and you can't get the full payment from the customer, then under MasterCard and Visa, you can then have, well, it's compulsory. They will just simply cancel that payment. So there's various reasons why we don't offer pre-order on other products, because with manufacturing and with the complexity of the dinosaur model making process, pre-order regimes can last for a very long time. And then you run into issues over how you manage that pre-order process. The only way around it is to get a customer to pay 100% of the fees up front. And we don't think that's very fair, because you might be spending 100% of your money and not seeing a model for 6 to 9 months. With us, we have a very simple process. I mean, we're model collectors too. So if people want us to reserve a model, they let us know, and we put it to one side in our warehouse. And in 6 months' time, when they're ready to buy it, they can buy it. If people hear about a new model coming in, like there's new Nama Studio Velociraptors, whatever they might be, if they let us know, we'll get their email, we'll hold their email, and then when the product's in stock, we'll say, right, there you are. You can buy this model now if you want to. You're going to be one of the first people we speak to about this figure. So there's no need to worry about pre-ordering. We've just basically recognized your interest. We've set one aside for you, and it's there for you to buy it if you want it. It's just a better way of doing business, we think.
So people can just go to your website, reach out to you directly via email.
Yeah, by all means. If they want us to reserve a model for them, and we do that, if they want to get a hold of a model, we've just the Howland Good Dreadnoughtus figures are coming in very soon, I think next week. We have not put those on our website because lots of people wanted them. We just let people know and they let us know, and we've got a huge list of customers who have got those models on reserve. And then we'll be in touch with those people and let them get their models. That Dreadnoughtus figure from Howland Good may never actually make it to our main website. It's just the way we try and look after people.
How do you inform people that this model is coming in? Is it like a newsletter, or do you reach out actively when it's never on the website?
What we do, manufacturers get in touch with us, and lots of things are embargoed, so we know when things can be talked about. Then we'll post up on social media. We might put a blog post on it. This is what's coming in. And then you just drop an email to Everything Dinosaur, and then we will respond to that email, add you to the reservation list, and then you're sorted. You don't have to worry about it. We'll be in touch when the figure comes into stock. We know lots of people are desperate to collect figures, and there's always this massive fear of missing out. I have that too as a model collector. So we try our best to make the process as smooth and as simple as possible. No money up front, no deposit to pay. Just leave it with us. We'll take care of you. And when the figure comes into stock, it's your option to buy it if you want it.
And I have to add, unless you are sleeping, the response time is remarkable.
Yeah. Well, we work very long hours and we're forever in touch, because you talked about people who are neurodiverse. We appreciate that many people who are neurodiverse get stressed if they don't get a response very quickly. And we recognize that one of the ways in which we can help people is by being quick to respond, quick to acknowledge them getting in touch with us. We try our very best to respond as quickly as possible. We get feedback on models and people post up feedback, which is great, and we put it on the website. But then we always drop that person an email to thank them, to let them know that it's live and that they can see their comment on the product page. It's just that nice way of sort of keeping that community, that two-way communication together.
It's very much appreciated, and I guess not very common that someone is doing that.
Well, we're the only people who make dinosaur models and sell dinosaur models who collect dinosaur models. It's kind of our calling, if you like.
How much do what Bob and Dean and also you imagine clash with the possibilities engineering-wise? Like, for example, the stiffness of the model, the accuracy in microns and millimeters, whatever you would like to achieve.
It is a big challenge because most of the models that are made through plastic injection molding technology, which is 20th century. The way we make our models is we have an enormous STL file, which is the data file, which is like if you're used to 3D modeling, that's the type of stereolithographic file you'd use for 3D modeling. That goes to the engineering team in the factory. They then break that down into a CAD-friendly format. And then from that, they will individually sculpt a wax mold, handcrafted that. Then they'll cast a figure from that. If that passes muster, they will then start working on making a metal mass production mold. And when we say mass production, literally, the molds we're using are so refined and so technically specific that we might make 2,000 models, then the mold breaks, and that's the end of production run. These things are so well engineered. Most dinosaur models have parting lines and seam lines, and they work within 2 millimeters. So if you turn dinosaur models and look at the tail, there's usually a very thin line that you can feel. That's the parting line where the figure comes out of the mold. For the technology we're using, it is 20th century, it is old school, but we are working to within a micron. And the technical details of the mold are huge. So on our figure, the parting lines, the seam lines are virtually invisible because it's done at the very, very cutting edge of the current technology. So there's always an issue with the engineering team and the creative team. With our Triceratops, Triceratops has got a mouth and the mouth is open. We wanted to have a mouth slightly more closed, but because of the curvature of its beak and because of the shape of the face of Triceratops, you can't physically get a partially closed mouth extracted from a mold. So our Triceratops had to be remodeled so its mouth is slightly wider to accommodate the engineering limitations when it came to the mold manufacturing design.
Okay. I guess this gives some insights into the process. Last questions. I have two more. One is, what do you want everyone to know about dinosaur models?
That's a really good question. I think the great thing about dinosaur models is that we're part of a very big community, a global community. People who draw dinosaurs, people who 3D print dinosaurs, people who talk about dinosaurs. I've learned today about paleo poetry, which was a new area for me. And all I want people to do with dinosaur models is to enjoy them, enjoy collecting them, enjoy learning about the past, always have that curiosity, and to be part of a wider community of people who have a fascination for prehistory.
This is a very lovely answer to that. We have one more in the chat. During your work process, have you ever considered some kind of one-off model for exceptional taxa that came from formations with less exceptional fossil records?
Really good question. Thank you for that. When it came down to finalizing the 5 geological formations that we're focusing on for the next range, and it's a public vote, the community can tell us where we go next. We looked at all kinds of individual animals and other geological formations. Carnotaurus was one we looked at. We looked at Abelisaurids, particularly because there's so much new information coming out from them, particularly some Abelisaurids from Morocco, for example, and some fascinating but quite fragmentary and very partial skeletons, but indicating that Abelisaurids were very prevalent in North Africa at the very end of Cretaceous. And we never say never in this industry. We might one day get Bob to do some bespoke artwork on a specific taxon. We might get Dean to look at finding a unique prehistoric animal model. I suspect with Dean, it's going to be some sort of ichthyosaur, and do a one-off. Why not? You know, highlighting and championing a part of the world and a very special fossil from that part of the world.
So we have chances. We don't know how high they are, but we are looking forward to it.
Yeah, but the great thing is with the technology now at people's fingertips, you can 3D print your own dinosaur design at home. And then you can paint it, and you've got a reasonably robust model that you've created and you've designed and you've produced the color scheme for. No one's ever seen a living, breathing, non-avian dinosaur. So your interpretation of that animal is as good as anyone else's to a very large extent, because you can never be 100% correct when you're talking about the Dinosauria.
I guess it's a very important note also for all the artists out there with all the room for interpretation.
Absolutely. And again, we see so many drawings and we get sent so many brilliant illustrations, and your gallery showcases such fantastic artwork. It's just wonderful. And everybody has their own views, everybody has their own perceptions. And whilst we try and work with the scientific record and get Dean to oversee the paleontology to make sure we're following the fossil evidence, from an artistic point of view, you have a lot more creativity, perhaps a lot more scope. And again, it's just wonderful to see so many interpretations of prehistoric animals. And it's great because everybody has an opportunity to create their own version.
And for the very last question, it is already a very positive session, and I tend to end it on a positive note. What do you appreciate the most in the paleo community?
I've seen so many talented people who've sort of started very young, and we've been able to encourage them, and they've now become quite accomplished authors or quite accomplished illustrators. They've built a portfolio of work they can be immensely proud of. That to me is where I get a real buzz. We see people grow and develop their artistic skills, and we've played a small role in helping to encourage them. That's really great. I mean, our current artist for the fact sheets is a young lady from Ukraine. She was studying art and design, but obviously with the invasion, the full-scale invasion, she had to leave Ukraine. She's a refugee, and she was the first person, we were the first people ever to talk to that young lady and say, we love what you do, please draw some dinosaurs for us. And we were the first person to pay her for her artwork. And that's a great way to help her. And hopefully she'll go on to continue her studies, continue her work in art and design, and maybe build a career with a creative industry.
I guess it's a really nice, really good closure. Then I would close this with thanking you for your time. It's so nice talking to you. I think many of the processes behind everything Dinosaur Evolution were not known so far. So there are lots of secret information about the thoughts, about the involvement of the community and all the people. What makes it even more special, this series of collectibles.
Well, thank you, Karim. It's been a pleasure. I hope your audience has got something out of it. I certainly have. It's just amazing to be part of such a talented community. I will drop you some information about the community vote about where we go next, which geological formation we explore. If people want to send us an email or through you about what geological formations we want to look at next from our shortlist, by all means, let us know and I'll add you to our database.